Okay, hello there. Yet again, we have to call out New York One, Spectrum News, because there's just so much crime that has been happening in the past couple of days, and I know we have political fever. I know we all got vaccinated that the Brooklyn Borough president's going to become our next mayor. Okay, I'm personally happy that a couple of Republicans won city council seats, but there was also the Pfizer story that there's going to be a medication, a second medication besides Merck, that's going to helpfully treat the symptoms of COVID 19 from Pfizer. So that's good news that it sounds like we're going to be out of this pandemic in a year from now. But now we have to talk about a new epidemic, or maybe a pandemic. I don't know what to call it. But we need to talk about the crime. Right? That's one of the issues of our post pandemic recovery. Besides the transportation issues that we face is the crime. So as seeing on New York One's website, all it is. Look at this. Look at this. I'm going to move this to the right so you can clearly see what New York One has here. Your latest political view. See, that's what New York One's aiming towards. All right. I understand that they want to talk about politics, but you're supposed to cover New York City. All right. And look, they still brag about Eric Adams winning. Like, enough! Enough! And then they talk about COVID. I mean, I'm kind of glad Billy Joel's back at Madison Square Garden because it shows that we're coming back from the lockdowns. But, I mean, this is ridiculous. Nothing about crime. Only thing they have about crime was a mom that was shot in the Bronx. That's it. That's it. And at least they spent almost 3 minutes talking about the taxi medallion, so at least they somewhat care about the blue-collar people in New York. But, it's just disturbing that they don't want to talk about crime. Look at this. And look at this, because vacant state prisons be for a different use. Give me a break. And then look at this. Some loophole of the bail reform law. Well, I'm not going to read that. There's the stuff that we have to talk about that's local. So you see on New York One's not covering crime. But this should have been on the home page. This should have been on the home page. Alright, so we're going to lead off with this. 6-year-old boy killed, father critically injured in a trash compactor fire. So, this should have been the top story on New York One's website. But no, nothing about it. Alright, so let's read this, and I'm going to move this to the left because thankfully with OBS, I'm using an older version where the window capture feature works because Pine Power LI has been having technical difficulties lately on his Long Island news, but at least he's been doing a good job covering what News 12 hasn't been doing. So let's read this. A 6-year-old boy died and his 32-year-old father was critically injured after a fire broke out in a trash compactor in their Bronx apartment building on Friday, November 5th. This incident took place at about 5:18 p.m. inside the building at 303 East 135th Street, located within Mitchell Housing Public Complex in the Mott Haven section. Aiden Hayward, age 6, apparently succumbed to smoke inhalation. This was reported by the FDNY as a 2-alarm fire. 25 fire department units and 106 personnel raced to the scene in response to a fire at the location. They came to a 911 call. Fire department sources said upon arrival, they found fire which contained in a trash compactor, emanating heavy smoke that spread through the chute into the building's upper floors. While battling the blaze, first responders came across Hayward and his father in a hallway near the trash compactor. Both were found unconscious and suffering from smoke inhalation. Firefighters pulled the victims from the building and EMS rushed them both to area hospitals. Sadly, the 6-year-old child died a short time later at New York City Health Hospital's Harlem. His 32-year-old father was brought to nearby Lincoln Hospital in critical condition. The fire department said that 8 other residents suffered non-life-threatening injuries and were treated in a nearby medical center. 2 firefighters were injured while battling the blaze were also treated at Lincoln Hospital. The blaze was brought under control at 7:24 p.m. Fire marshals are now investigating the cause of the deadly inferno. So, the only question I wonder, does Lincoln Hospital have a pediatric unit? Because I know Harlem does. Let me find out. I'm going to look it up. Pediatrics. Yeah. So why was this child taken to Harlem? That doesn't make any sense. Let me look up this address. Because I'm kind of furious right now that this child could have been taken to the same hospital his father was taken to. Why did this child have to be taken to Harlem? Okay, I'm just trying to confirm the address. Okay, we can look it up here. See, what you can do is you can right-click and it comes up with, yeah, so we're going to look up the Bronx. Because, okay, I think this is why it made sense. Because the thing is, Harlem Hospital is right over the 3rd Avenue Bridge. See, Harlem Hospital is a little bit west of here. See, this is Harlem Hospital. So I'm thinking they probably took the child probably across the Madison Avenue Bridge. Because think about it, Harlem Hospital's emergency room's right here. So that would make sense. Okay. So I understood why they took the child to Harlem. But how far is Lincoln Hospital from this location? I'm curious. Lincoln Hospital. Just looking it up for a second. Yeah, they're pediatric. I'm just curious to see where it is. Yeah, exactly. I mean, either way, both hospitals were close to this location. So probably maybe there was more beds available in Harlem. I don't know. But in a way, Harlem does have a pediatric unit. That I know. So very disturbing. Very disturbing that a New York one couldn't even cover this. Alright, my goodness. A 6-year-old boy was killed in a trash compactor fire. Shame on you, New York one. Shame on you. Alright, and there's so many other stories that, you know, that's been going on. I want to focus on this one right here. This is a disturbing one. That there have been a lot of disturbing ones, but let's talk about this one right here, because I'm very disgusted with how the crime around the Union Square area, particularly Union Square and Chelsea, has been ignored by New York One, and you know that's what also irritates me. So let's read this. Knife-wielding crook swipes books and toys from the Union Square Barnes & Noble location. And by the way, if you've ever been to Union Square, it's a beautiful building that they have the Barnes & Noble in. And this is going on in Union Square? I mean, why aren't I surprised with all the homeless that always panhandle there? Alright, so here we go. Cops are looking for a crook who robbed the Union Square bookseller at knife point last week. According to police, at 5:15 p.m. last Saturday, October 30th, an unknown man entered the Barnes & Noble at 33 East 17th Street and took a canvas tote bag that was for sale at the store. The suspect proceeded to try and conceal an assortment of books and games while inside the tote bag, valued together at approximately $217, according to a Barnes & Noble spokesperson, and attempted to leave the store without paying. When he was stopped by an employee, the suspect pulled out a knife and fled the store eastbound on East 17th Street towards Park Avenue south. There were no injuries reported as a result of the incident. So, probably fled on the subway. That's what I think. Okay, so we do have a surveillance video. The suspect is described as a dark-skinned man with a thin build, standing at 6 feet tall. He was last seen wearing a Black Panther jacket that said Valentino on the back, black pants, black sneakers, and a blue bucket hat and chains around his neck. So there you go. I mean, Union Square, the New York one could have covered. Literally, they could have sent a reporter over to the Barnes & Noble at Union Square, but we're New York one. We don't care about incidents that happen literally a couple blocks away from our studios on 8th Avenue. And a lot of hate crimes have been ignored this week. You know, we've been so fascinated with the election that, you know, I at least saw 2 hate crime incidents here on the police and fire section. So I just want to see where I could find the other one. Hang on. Well, this is the one I was looking for. I actually heard about this, believe it or not, from Greg Kelly. Out of all people, Ray Kelly's son, who is now a media analyst, he literally was talking about this the other day on WABC radio. So this is the one I was looking for. So let's read this. And mind you, this is not too far from where WABC TV studios are. Because the radio studios are actually on the east side of Manhattan. So let's read this. Detectives are looking for a Max man who threatened a man and cut him with an axe in Lincoln Square on November 1st. According to police, at 10:06 p.m. on November 1st, a 51-year-old man was walking in front of 1849 Broadway when he was approached by an unknown man. The suspect threatened the victim, and when the victim said he was going to call the police, the masked man pulled out an axe from his waistband, threatened to kill the victim, and started swinging. The victim was hit one under his left elbow and suffered a deep laceration. The suspect then fled on foot into the 59th Street Columbus Circle subway station. Paramedics took the victim to Mount Sinai Morningside in stable condition. The NYPD released a picture of the suspect, who was described as a dark-skinned man in a Halloween mask with a blue mask underneath, a dark-colored coat, blue jeans, and black boots. So obviously it was Halloween weekend. But wait a minute, November 1st was Monday. That's kind of very disturbing. My goodness. And then here's a mystery that should have been covered. Queens woman's mysterious death. Okay, here we go. This was in Flushing. And New York won't ignore this. Detectives in Queens are talking to a 52-year-old man in connection with the death of a young woman at his apartment building on Monday, November 1st. Officers from the 109 precinct found the 29-year-old victim unconscious and unresponsive in the vestibule of a building at 55-26 Main Street at about 11:23 in the evening. Law enforcement sources did not disclose the nature of the victim's injuries. Responding EMS units pronounced her dead at the scene. Police have withheld her identity pending family notification and to comply with federal HIPAA. Her body was taken to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy to determine the cause of death. While investigating the homicide, sources familiar with the case said officers came upon a gruesome scene inside a second-floor apartment, with blood on and broken glass covering a floor. Police did not disclose whether the victim or the person of interest had been inside that location. Meanwhile, the 52-year-old man at the scene was taken into custody for further questioning. Police sources did not indicate if he had had any kind of relationship with the victim. Sources familiar with the case indicate the person of interest has not been cooperating with detectives thus far. Charges are pending the results of an ongoing investigation, so... Very disturbing that this happened in Flushing, and New York 1 just completely blows off Queens. So there's just so much that's been going on. You know, I don't even want to get into every single tidbit, but we do need to talk about this. 2 teenagers slashed during a brawl a block away from a high school in Queens. Forest Hills. 14-year-old boy faces assault charges for allegedly knifing 2 other teenagers down the block from a Queens high school on November 3rd. Law enforcement sources said the brawl broke out at 4:22 p.m. on November 3rd at the corner of 67th Avenue and 108th Street in Forest Hills, about a block away to the entrance of Forest Hills High School. Sources familiar with the case reported the 3 individuals involved in the melee are all Forest Hills students. The circumstances led up to the fracas were not disclosed. Officers from the 112 precinct responded to the incident and found a 15-year-old boy who suffered a puncture wound to his left hand and a 14-year-old boy with a slash wound to his right hand. EMS brought both victims to Booth Memorial Medical Center in Flushing for treatment of their injuries, which were non-life-threatening. Meanwhile, cops recovered the 14-year-old male suspect near the crime scene, as well as a switchblade allegedly used in the fight. Police charged the youngster with assault and criminal possession of a weapon. His name is being withheld due to his age. So, very disturbing. And look at this, de Blasio last week claimed they were going to bring back the metal detectors. Well, they should. They should. And Eric Adams should keep that in the schools. No question. You know, Eric Adams used to be a cop. He should keep the metal detectors in the schools. Alright, so I want to get to the hate crimes because, again, they have been ignored this week. Alright, so I'm going to read these last 2 and then I'm going to wrap up this video because, you know, I'm just disturbed that we ignored these incidents this week. And then I want to get to the taxi medallions because that's what I want to get to next. So here we go. Racist jerk mocks men for speaking Cantonese. Then assaults them on a Brooklyn street. Oh, I have one more thing I want to show from the New York Post. So I'll show that right after I read these 2 articles. Detectives in Brooklyn are looking for a loudmouth bigot who mocked 3 men as they spoke Cantonese, then violently attacked them on a street back on November 2nd. The NYPD Hate Crimes Task Force is now investigating the matter. This incident happened at 8:30 p.m. So this happened in front of a restaurant in Bensonhurst at 6418. Okay, there's no dash. So I'm so used to giving Queens addresses. According to law enforcement sources, the perpetrator walked by 3 men who were 51, 56, and 57 and mocked the way they spoke to each other in Cantonese. They prompted the 56-year-old man to confront the suspect about his actions. Seconds later, the bigot punched the men in the face, then displayed a knife and spritzed the men with an unknown substance. The video that the NYPD Crime Stoppers unit shows the suspect being pulled away from the location by several men. Moments later, he fled the scene on foot along 20th Avenue. The incident was later reported to the 62nd Precinct. EMS brought all 3 men to Maimonides Medical Center for treatment of minor injuries. So we do have a description. Okay, it says here that police described this suspect as a heavy-set, bearded black man between the ages of 25 and 35 years of age, weighing between 200 and 225 pounds, who was last seen wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, dark-colored pants, and black sandals. Oh my goodness, this guy could literally freaking look like a wrestler I used to know in WWE. He literally looks just like Mark Henry. Look at that. Definitely a chubby looking guy. As I said, we've been so focused on Eric Adams this week winning the election that these incidents should have been talked about on the news, but they weren't. And then let's read this, another hate crime that got ignored. So here we go. Police say that at 3:30 p.m. on October 31st, a 26-year-old woman was in front of 250 Hudson Street when she was approached by an unknown woman from behind. The suspect proceeded to make anti-Asian statements and punch the victim in the back of the head. The suspect then fled the scene on foot. The victim suffered pain to the back of her head, but refused medical attention. Oh, okay, that's not a smart move. I'm sorry, but that victim should have went to the hospital to at least get treated. Trust me, if I was offered medical help, I would have accepted it. I would have said, all right, is there an ambulance around? I hate to say it, but this probably is a vagrant. The way she's dressed. Okay, then I want to get to this. This is what New York 1 had, so this doesn't take too long to read. I'm not even going to play the video, because the video is just too disturbing to play. Video shows the moment mom was pushing a stroller was shot in the Bronx. Okay, surveillance footage captures a moment when an innocent mom was shot in the leg as she pushed her toddler in the stroller in the Bronx on Thursday evening, November 4th. There was a startled woman suddenly jumping away from the stroller and hopping on one leg. She then returns to the stroller, seeming to check to see if her daughter was okay. Then she asks to help passers-by for help before one good Samaritan stops and wraps her leg. Another person joins, helping her to walk to a car. The mother was struck in the thigh during the shooting, which unfolded just before 6 p.m. at the intersection of Broadway and West 225th Street in Marble Hill. So that's normally a busy area. I'm surprised that this happened that time of the day. Good news is the woman was taken to a local hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. NYPD is currently investigating this incident. So far, there have been no arrests. Yeah, so here's the original article they have. Let's see. Yeah, like I figured, they don't know. They are looking for an unknown man who shot the gun, according to this original article. And lastly, I want to quickly talk about the taxi medallions, because this is kind of a big deal in terms of me, because my dad used to be a taxi driver, around my age. And yes, we do have blue-collar roots in my family. I'm a nursing home worker who transports residents, and my dad, he used to drive a taxi. So there you go. So let's read this. So, the taxi medallion drivers, they were upset because they couldn't make payments to keep driving. So let's read this. Taxi workers have finally brokered a debt relief agreement with New York City and a private asset management company after more than months of protests calling on Mayor de Blasio to do more to help thousands of drivers struggling with medallion debt. The New York Taxi Workers Alliance reached a deal on Wednesday, November 3rd with Magobec Asset Management, who controls a large number of the city's medallions, to supplement the city's existing taxi medallion relief program. So, that's good news at least. I mean, they've been going on hunger strikes because, again, they can't afford to pay off their medallions. And, I hate to say it, and again, I support mass transit, but, Uber and Lyft have been undermining the taxis in the city. I mean, if you want to use, let's say, an Uber or a Lyft in like a rural area, okay, fine. But you gotta understand, New York City is the birthplace of hailing a taxi cab. It's just ridiculous that they always like to undermine these drivers. So I just want to quickly bring that up, that at least, they're going to be able to pay off their bills. But, New York 1, this TV station, again, time and time again, just proves that they don't care about the real issues of New York. And especially how, again, they didn't even mention that a child was killed in an apartment fire. 6-year-old child. You normally think that would be the lead story. But no. So shame on you, New York 1. And I'm going to keep calling you out. And again, I will mention Pine Power Allies keeping the good fight in Long Island. So I'm going to keep doing the good fight here in New York City, because somebody has got to talk about these issues. So I'm going to wrap up this video. Thank you for watching.